Jack Carson had been driving for hours through the winding roads of Central Oregon, the night shrouded in a thick fog that made it nearly impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. He squinted through the windshield, searching for any sign of life, a place where he could rest his weary body. His eyes lit up with relief when he spotted a flickering neon sign in the distance, Motel. The motel looked as worn and tired as Jack felt. The paint was peeling off the walls, and the sign was missing a few letters, but it was open. He pulled into the empty parking lot, turned off the engine, and stepped out of his car. The air was cool and damp, and the smell of wet earth and mildew greeted him. He trudged to the reception, a small, dimly lit room that seemed to belong to a different era. A bell sat on the counter, and he tapped it, the sound echoing in the otherwise silent room. After a few moments, an elderly man with a hunched back and a tired expression appeared from a door behind the counter. "Room for the night?" Jack asked, his voice raspy from hours of disuse. The old man nodded slowly, his eyes dull and uninterested. $20, he said in a gravelly voice. Jack handed over the cash and received a rusted key attached to a wooden block with the number 7 carved into it. The old man pointed down a dark corridor. "Rooms at the end." Jack thanked him and made his way down the hall. The floorboards creaked under his weight, and the air grew colder and more oppressive with each step. He reached room 7 and unlocked the door, stepping into a small, dingy room. The wallpaper was yellowed and peeling, and the bed looked like it hadn't been cleaned in years. But he was too tired to care. He locked the door behind him, dropped his bag on the floor, and collapsed onto the bed without bothering to undress. Sleep came quickly, but it was not peaceful. Jack's dreams were filled with images of dark, scuttling shapes, their legs skittering over his skin. He tossed and turned, trying to escape the nightmare, but it clung to him, growing more vivid with each passing moment. He woke with a start, his heart pounding in his chest. The room was pitch black, and for a moment he couldn't remember where he was. He reached for the lamp on the bedside table and flicked it on. The dim light revealed a horrifying sight. The bed was covered in large, black cockroaches, their bodies glistening in the faint light. Jack tried to scream, but his voice caught in his throat as the cockroaches began to swarm over him, their legs prickling his skin. He thrashed wildly, trying to brush them off, but there were too many. They crawled over his face, into his mouth, and up his nose. He could feel them biting, their sharp mandibles tearing into his flesh. He leaped from the bed and stumbled towards the door, but his legs gave out, and he collapsed to the floor. The cockroaches followed, a living tide of black that engulfed him completely. His screams were muffled by the sheer number of insects, his body convulsing as they continued their relentless attack. Hours passed, and the room grew silent once more. By morning, there was nothing left of Jack Carson but a few scattered bones and a blood-stained mattress. The cockroaches had done their work well, leaving no trace of their victim. The old man at the reception desk watched the sunrise through a cracked window, his expression unchanged. He had seen it all before, countless times. The motel was a trap, a place where weary travelers would meet their end, devoured by the horrors that lurked within its walls. He stood slowly and made his way to room 7, unlocking the door and peering inside. The room was as it always was after a feeding, silent, empty, and devoid of life. He nodded to himself, closed the door, and returned to his post. As the day wore on, the motel remained empty, waiting for its next victim. The old man knew it wouldn't be long. There were always travelers, always people looking for a place to rest. And the motel would be there, ready to welcome them with open arms and hungry cockroaches. Jack Carson's car sat untouched in the parking lot, a silent testament to his final journey. The fog lifted, revealing the desolate landscape of Central Oregon. The motel stood alone, a relic of a forgotten time, its neon sign flickering in the morning light. The old man sat behind the reception desk, waiting. He knew that soon enough, someone else would arrive, tired and weary, seeking refuge from the road. And when they did, the cycle would begin again. The motel would claim another victim, and the cockroaches would feast once more. As the sun set on another day, a new traveler pulled into the parking lot, their car coming to a stop in front of the motel. The old man smiled, his eyes gleaming with a cold, predatory light. He reached for the key to room 7, ready to welcome the next unsuspecting guest. And so, the motel waited, its dark secret hidden beneath a veneer of hospitality. The cockroaches lay in wait, their hunger growing with each passing moment. The cycle would continue, and the motel would remain a place of horror, a death trap for those who dared to seek shelter within its walls. As the new traveler, a young woman named Sarah, stepped into the reception, she was greeted by the same eerie silence that had welcomed Jack Carson. The old man appeared, his demeanor unchanged, and handed her the key to room 7. She thanked him and made her way down the dark corridor, oblivious to the fate that awaited her. Sarah entered the room, noting its dilapidated state, but exhaustion clouded her judgment. She set her bag down and lay on the bed, trying to find some comfort in the worn sheets. Sleep came quickly, just as it had for Jack. She awoke in the middle of the night, her skin crawling with an unbearable itch. She reached for the lamp and flicked it on, her eyes widening in horror as she saw the bed covered in cockroaches. She tried to scream, but like Jack, her voice was lost in the chaos of the moment. The insects swarmed over her, their bites piercing her flesh, and she struggled in vain to escape their grasp. As the hours passed, the motel once again fell silent. By morning, room 7 was empty, its previous occupant nothing more than a distant memory. The cycle had begun anew, and the motel stood ready to claim its next victim. The old man watched the sunrise, his expression unchanged. The motel had claimed another life, and the cockroaches were sated for now. He knew it was only a matter of time before another weary traveler would arrive, seeking refuge from the road. And when they did, the motel would be ready, its dark secret hidden beneath a veneer of hospitality. The motel stood alone, a relic of a forgotten time, its neon sign flickering in the morning light. The cycle would continue, and the motel would remain a place of horror, a death trap for those who dared to seek shelter within its walls. The old man waited, knowing that soon enough, someone else would arrive, and the cockroaches would feast once more. And so, the motel waited, its dark secret hidden beneath a veneer of hospitality. The cockroaches lay in wait, their hunger growing with each passing moment. The cycle would continue, and the motel would remain a place of horror, a death trap for those who dared to seek shelter within its walls. The old man waited, knowing that soon enough, someone else would arrive, and the cockroaches would feast once more.